tap it. I've been carrying my phone around, but I don't think the phone tracks it as well. You
No,
know, like
it
the
doesn't catch
movement
it
and
doesn't
stuff.
catch all the things, right? It's a little bit of a
Yeah,
my Fitbit was dead. I think it was dead over the weekend or Saturday or Sunday, and it just felt like
I
all
know.
the part of me was missing. I couldn't see my.
Yeah. I have an older watch, so I need to Saisha, hold on, honey. I need to charge it like midday for it to last through the whole day. So I brought it to my brother's yesterday and plugged it in and charged it up, and then I forgot it. So I was so bummed about it. But we'll see. Maybe I can still grab it from them and then get my walk in or something, you know?
As long as you're moving and you're getting your steps in, that should be good.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
Shaithya, how are we doing on your end?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are things going on your end?
Just working away, but good. How's Texas?
We just landed this morning,
Oh,
actually.
really? Oh, okay.
Really just got here, and then
Oh,
we landed at I think 12. We got some food, and then now I'm settled in the hotel. Like I'm gonna do some work for a little bit, and yeah, shouldn't be too crazy. We have a little. We came here for a little conference. It's like a leadership entrepreneurship hybrid
mhm,
conference thing.
mhm.
That starts Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Me, Sid's flying in as well, and then one of my other buddies. So we're all here for the next couple days to be a part of that. That should be in the morning, so shouldn't be too different of a routine, but it's just crazy hot here. I
Oh
literally
yeah, it
came back
is hot.
from the
It
side.
is
My
hot.
head is sweat. It was just
Which,
dripping buckets.
which part of Texas are you in?
We're in Austin right now.
Austin, Texas. Oh gosh, yeah. That's,
It's
yeah.
crazy. My buddy looked at me. He's like, "There's just water coming out of your head." He's like, "I didn't know that was possible." I was like, when it gets hot, I'm not made for hot weather. I was made to stay in Canada the whole time.
Uh,
Um, let me just drop a little quick reminder here in our chat live and then post this link. Anything you guys wanted me to go over in particular? I know I want to talk about food tracking, how can we stay diligent with that, making sure that we hit our targets at the end of the day. But anything on your guys' end, maybe that we can cover first.
um,
It can be any question.
cause you know how you always say like when we're eating out to overestimate. Um, so how do I show you that in my tracking that you know that I've already overestimated versus me actually putting in what we've eaten?
So usually what me and Sid are looking for on that side is I just had tacos. I had 3 tacos. I would put it in as 3.5, or honestly, I'd probably put mine in as 4.2. When there's like a decimal number, usually I know, okay, someone has overestimated
Decimal.
it.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
And then once we kind of see it enough from your end as well, then I can tell. Like for example, I was looking over someone's food this morning, and they put 0.75 of a serving, and I saw another 0.75. So I'm like, okay, this person just had half once and half the other, and they just tracked it as 0.75, right?
Okay,
So
okay.
I can kind of see things and know, okay, like this person understands it. I think the biggest thing would be to send pictures. I know Darcy sent pictures of haka noodles on Friday. Was it Friday last week, Darcy? I think it was. And like we helped her.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. So once I can kind of see, okay, this is how things are going. We want to make sure we're staying on top of that. So at the beginning, if we are eating out, like just send over a quick picture of whatever it can be, just so you have that confidence in yourself to be able to do it, but then I can also see, hey, you know how to do that, so I can sort of get
Mhm.
off. Usually at that point, it's more so, hey, like, how did it actually look in that side of things? Cool,
Yes, cool. Thank you.
perfect. Any other questions?
I had a quick question. The spray oil is not really working out for me. I mean, just because it's messing up my pans and things are sticky. So if I were to not do the spray oil, but like, what is the healthiest oil? Is there one? Like, is it olive oil, canola oil, coconut oil. Like,
I
what is
think
it?
this is a mix between like extra virgin olive oil, or yeah, extra virgin olive oil or avocado oil would be your two best bets.
Avocado. Okay.
Like, have you heard the term seed oils?
Yes.
Yeah, so seed oils would consist of sunflower,
Yeah.
canola, peanut, um,
But
anything that.
those are like super high in calories, right? The seed oil.
Honestly, they're the exact same calories.
Okay.
1 tablespoon of peanut oil and 1 tablespoon of avocado oil, exact same amount of calories. It's just the difference more so is in, I'm gonna get a little bit specific here, but it's the saturated fats and unsaturated fats. That's what people typically talk about. Seed oils just have a little bit more of those saturated fats, and it's just a little bit more inflammatory. It's not the end of the world. Honestly, I
Yeah.
think you can have seed oils here and there, and most of our Tamil cooking, you're gonna get sunflower oil or canola oil is kind of the main thing that we use to cook with, or at least in my house, right?
Oh, okay.
What else?
I mean,
Yeah,
for me, it's most of it was canola oil, but I don't think I've ever tried sunflower
yeah.
oil.
I'm pretty sure canola isn't canola sunflower oil. Am I? No, it's
What
like
is?
it's like a vegetable oil, pretty much, right? So it's not the end of the world. If you're struggling with that, what you can do is you can get like a spritzer bottle off Amazon, maybe $5 or $10, and you can just put
Yeah.
your oil in that.
Yes. Okay. Because my pants have really like just I just gotta get new ones. It's just so sticky, you know.
Yeah. I know some people they throw water in there and they use the like this is I don't know some people cook with water and apparently it helps them not stick. Because I'll see like people tracking. I'm like, hey, like I don't see any oil here. How did you cook it?
Right.
Like I just put water in and I would like use that so it doesn't stick. I'm not sure about how that works out in practicality.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like when I'm making bigger like curries, I don't use as much oil. But if I'm like frying an egg,
Yeah.
then like especially the eggs, I would need oil. But if I'm doing curries, then yeah, like a tiny bit of oil and then water to like just cook the veggies or the shrimp or whatever.
Yeah, let me look into that for you. I do
Thank you.
think I do think there's a way to do it with minimizing that oil on that side.
Okay.
Solid. Anything else? If not, I'll get into my little presentation. I think whoever's coming on is coming on. Perfect. So in terms of food tracking, today I want to just go over like common mistakes, right? Things that I see in what you guys are doing, not you two in particular, but everyone that we work with here. Some of the common mistakes, things that we know, things that we might know, things that we might have forgotten, things that we have might not know, right? That's kind of the hidden things that sort of prevent us from having things as dialed in as best as possible, right? And then the last part in terms of how to tie it back all into this is cool. We can know how to track our food, but at the end of the day, there are certain targets that we should be aiming for, and we want to be able to hit them on a consistent basis, as consistent as possible, right? So how do you make sure at the end of the day, I'm looking over at your food, or Sid's looking over your food, or you're looking over your own food, we've hit those targets as we go forward. So that's some of the things that I want to cover. 5 most common tracking mistakes. Why we're not hitting our protein goals, because that's usually a big thing. Managing our calories. Carbohydrates. I find this one, maybe not for you two as much yet, maybe Darcy a little bit, but I find one of the biggest things I get is when I get people to start paying attention to the amount of carbs that they're eating, and more so it's not less, it's how do we eat more carbs, but keeping the calories down, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well, because carbs at the end of the day are energy. It's great for us if it comes in the right sources and it's timed accurately as well. And then we're going to talk about some practical steps that we can put everything together. So number 1 would be to not eyeball our portions. I think that's kind of a pretty given one, right? When someone puts in a cup of rice, or when they put in 2 cups of rice, I'm very skeptical about that, because I tell everyone at the beginning, hey, let's weigh our food. Let's make sure we can see that, especially when we're preparing it ourselves. We want to be in a position where we're weighing that stuff, right? A cup of rice, it can be a what do you call it? A leveled out cup. It can be a heaping cup, a handful, like it. One serving, when I see that, red flags go up, because what does that actually mean, right? Whereas 100 grams of rice is going to be 100 grams of rice, whether you're here, there, wherever you are in the world, right? Things with rice, oil, nuts, especially nuts. When we typically have those, we're kind of eating out of a bag, or we're getting a handful of that. Those are the things that can add up in calories, right? Or even like when people use a little bit of oil, cool. I know when my mom says she uses a little bit of oil, I know what that looks like. It's not a little bit. It's probably closer to 40 to 50 grams, because she's just going in there. But that's why I want to weigh that out as best as possible, right? Speaking of oils, obviously oils, sauces, little bites here and there, those are things that typically add up, right? I was guilty of this a lot, where, hey, I'd have my meals, and then like in between, I'd probably open the fridge and there's maybe a little piece of this or a little piece of that. And I'm like, this won't hurt, but it adds up, right? If you have like 10 bites of random things throughout the day, or you're finishing off someone else's food, like that stuff is going to add up there. So making sure we're accounting for stuff like that, right? Even if that's where the overestimating typically does do wonder for us, for ourselves as well. Next biggest common mistake is logging at the end of the day, or logging the previous day's food, right? I find this like 99% of the time doesn't allow us to track properly, because we're not really remembering every single thing, even if you have a great memory. I know for myself, I don't. I'm not sure what you guys can speak on when it comes to our memory, but there's that part of it as well. But it's also the fact that we can't make any adjustments when we log in at the end of the day. We're kind of just, oh, this is what we did. Whereas if we're logging as we're eating, or if we're logging right after eating, or even better, logging before we're eating, then we're in a much better spot to be able to make those adjustments in real time, to be able to hit our targets at the end of the day. Another common one, very, very common one, very common for myself. This was something that took me a long time to get through, was not tracking on the weekends, right? And saying, hey, my Monday to Friday is absolutely perfect. I'm doing everything right. And let me be a little bit loose on the weekends, and not tracking that. Very easy for things to get out of hand. And it's not more so to track and say, hey, like this was a bad day of eating, but it's more so to track and be aware of what we're having, right? Like literally all my food is getting put in over the next 4 days. I'm going to have a lot of mostly outside food here. But I want to make sure I track it, just to get an idea of what's kind of going on, what's going inside my body. Can I make better choices here and there? Even consistently partially logging things, or like having a rough estimate for things, is going to be way more useful than tracking dialed in 100% on a weekday and then completely not tracking over the weekend. I think I can speak for everyone when I say, hey, when I don't see, or when me and Sid don't see someone's day's tracked of eating, chances are we didn't have the greatest day of eating, and we're a little bit scared or guilty or whatnot to put it in. I was having this conversation with someone yesterday. They're like, yeah, like there's days where I sit there and I'm like, I don't know if I want to put it in, but that gives us data for us to be able to make better decisions off of. Last one here, and this one's a tough one. But it's choosing the right entries in MyFitnessPal. That's why I check over everyone's food and what they're eating and how they're tracking and how they're putting it in. Because at this point, I've seen when someone puts, I think the most common one I've seen is padapu or dal, and they'll put in 50 grams of that and it says like 30 calories. I'm like, very rarely is something or some food going to be less calories than the amount it weighs. I think the only odd exceptions would be like berries and very green leafy vegetables, right? Because those are mostly made up of water. But when it comes to actual food, our protein, our carbs, little things like that, and especially outside foods, when something says, hey, it's 100 grams of an outside food, it's 100 calories, chances are it's underestimating it, right? So one of the best things that we can do is using verified entries, making sure the entries that we're putting in, if it's a protein, hey, it's chicken breast, skin on, cooked, or chicken wing, skin off, roasted, or whatever the case that might mean. Using that MyFitnessPal for most of the Western foods, it has it's pretty solid in terms of having the green check marks for stuff. Obviously, when it comes to the Tamil foods and the cultural foods, that's where things get a little bit tricky when we're looking into the curries and the sundas and all those different things, and that's where we want you to send us those pictures and make sure we're in a good spot. But you guys also have access to that Tamil food nutrition guide where we can quickly cross-reference as well. We want to make sure the macros make sense, right? If you're putting something in and it doesn't look amazing or look right off the top of your head, feel free to shoot me a message and say, hey, like, can you take a look at this, right? Or use your common sense on that side of things. One of the easiest things that we can do is just say, hey, like, I had 50 grams of this. Maybe put it into Google, or at this point, put it into whatever AI software you're using. But hey, like, does this look right? And it'll tell you, like, this is probably X amount of calories. That's going to put us in a much better spot. But I would say those are like the 5 of the most common mistakes that people aren't necessarily aware of, or we are aware of and we tend to forget, or these are some of the things that we let slip up as we go forward. So any questions with that on your guys' end?
May I ask a question?
Yes.
So you know how the one thing we were talking about was like milk?
Yeah.
So you suggested almond milk, right?
Yep.
Is it just for the fact of, because I'm assuming almond milk has no, is there any nutritional value in it like regular milk does?
Regular milk, 1 cup of 2% milk, I believe, is 150 calories.
Something like that. Okay, so it's strictly for the calories you want me to swap out, not for anything else. Okay, so almond milk is your suggestion, because I'm gonna go buy it.
Unsweetened almond milk.
Unsweetened almond milk. Okay.
30 calories for the same amount of milk.
Okay.
It's a little bit, or what you can do, and what I've done in the past as well, is I'll do half the amount of milk. So maybe that comes up to 60 calories or 40 calories, and I'll just mix it in with water. The thing with almond milk is that it doesn't taste as fatty or rich. It's a little bit watery. You can get that same effect by using regular 2% milk and adding water to cut it. Right?
Oh.
There's that aspect of it too.
Okay, thanks.
Purely for the calories is why we're looking to swap.
Okay.
Yeah. Almond milk will not taste like regular whole milk if you're used to like your morning coffee with milk.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I do. I just do like 1/4 cup of whole milk. I do whole milk, and then I just add a lot of boiling water to it.
Yeah. Even choosing like a less fat milk, like instead of 3%, it's 2%, so 2% is 1%. That can put us in a much better spot there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure about the creamers. I know they have like low calorie creamers and stuff. I personally have never used that. Granted, I also drink my coffee and stuff black, so I'm probably not the best person to ask on that side of things. But that's typically why we swap that out. I was drinking almond milk for about 2.5, 3 years at that point, and once you get used to it, you get used to it, right? So there's also that aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thanks.
Next slide here. Why we're not hitting our protein. Number 1, especially for the vegetarian days, relying on plant protein as our primary source is going to make it really, 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 really tough to get our protein in, right? Which is why a lot of vegetarian people, or a lot of people on their veggie days, they're like, hey, like, how do I get my protein in? Well, typically most common vegetarian protein sources are things like paneer or patapu or beans and legumes. And I'm not saying those things are bad, but it's that those things also come with the additional calories, usually in carbs or fats, right? So let's say we're eating 20 grams, we're getting 20 grams of protein from paneer compared to 20 grams of protein from actual low-fat cottage cheese. The calories on one of those are going to be way, way, way higher compared to the other. So that's why we typically don't get our protein in, right? So what I would say is be really mindful of the types of protein sources that you're using. Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, egg whites if you can, extra firm tofu, edamame. It's the other ones off the top of my head. Someone has been doing seitan recently as well. So those are solid things that we can swap out for, just be mindful of so we're in a good spot, right? Number 2 would be not front loading our protein. If we're struggling to hit our protein targets and we're consistently day in and day out, we're always falling under, the biggest thing that I see is we're not eating enough protein in our first meal, right? If we're getting at least 40, 50, even more grams of protein in that first meal, we're going to be in a really, really good spot. What I personally just like to do, I'll do 1.5 scoops of protein batter. I think that brings me up to about 40-ish grams of protein right there, right? I have that. I'm good. I'm aiming for about 150 to 160 grams of protein per day. If I do that, I'm in a good spot. Then I just make sure everything else, I'm in a good spot, right? The other thing that we say for that is be able to hit about like half your protein target or a little bit more than half your protein target by midday. So by the time you've had your lunch, you should have a little bit more than half your protein target done, at least half. So that way you're not cramming I don't know, chicken breast or some random junk at the end, not junk, but random food at the end of the day just to kind of get that in. What you're going to notice is that most of the foods that we enjoy and like to eat don't have protein in them, right? So if at the end of the day you're like, holy shit, I have 300 calories and I have to get 40 grams of protein, we're probably going to have to eat something that doesn't taste very good and isn't going to taste amazing. And for me, that's usually egg whites, which I'm not a fan of, but you got to get it in, right? So that's why I want to have that in way earlier on in the day. Another reason why we typically don't hit protein is we might actually be hitting protein, but we're underestimating our food, which brings us back to this thing here. When we're not tracking things properly, hey, we might actually very well be hitting our protein, but because we're using the wrong entries or eyeballing things or things are getting logged in at the end of the day, we're actually not just tracking the amount of protein that we're getting. It's kind of like what Darcy's situation right now, where she's getting steps in, but we're not able to track it, right? So being able to estimate that properly, put in those proper entries is going to put us in a good spot. Sometimes as well, the other caveat to that is there are foods, typically things with that check marks, that say they have 60 grams of protein for 300 calories. That's physically impossible, right? So when you're putting stuff in there, if it seems like a fishy, suspicious number, just double check that there as well to make sure that we're getting the right amounts there, right? What else we got here? The other one I like to say is always focus your meals with protein as the anchor. Choose the protein, put everything else around that. If you say, hey, I'm going to eat rice today, and we're making rice the main thing, it's really hard to add things to that if protein isn't the main source. Whereas, hey, my protein source is chicken or shrimp, or it's this or it's that, and everything else comes around that, it's a lot easier to make that meal taste good. It's a lot easier to make sure that we're hitting our target. So that's essentially my main focus whenever I'm going out to eat is, hey, what's the protein source that I'm getting, right? Because the tortillas or the wraps or the bowls or whatever, that stuff is always going to be there. But what's the actual protein source? So if we can start to use that as an anchor and add everything else alongside that, we're going to be in a really, really good spot to be able to make sure that we're hitting that. Skipping breakfast protein entirely, I already talked about that. High protein thermal swaps. Some things I've seen when it comes to thermal food in particular is more so like we said, anchoring that protein source, so finding that protein source early. If not, it's adding something alongside of that food to make sure that we're hitting our protein. All right, so let's say we're having a traditional soda padapu kira like kulambu curry, and it's just like vegetarian food. Cool, we know that there's very little protein in that because our primary source of protein is coming from the padapu. What are we going to add to that? Well, if it's a vegetarian day, let's add in a cup, 2 cups of Greek yogurt. Have that on the side. Whether that's flavored, it's plain. I know people usually do like regular yogurt and rice and with their curries as well. We swapped that in our house completely to literally plain Greek yogurt, and that's what my entire family has. Right? It tastes relatively the same. If you want to water it down, you can water it down. Great way to add in protein, or we can add in a shake alongside of that. Maybe it's adding egg whites alongside our puttu and our pirata, right? Instead of like egg puttu, it's perfect. Let's put egg whites in there, right? That way we're in a much better spot. Maybe instead of like a roti dish, right? We have, I don't know, whatever you typically have roti. It's making sure there's a side of chicken, or it's a side of this, or it's a side of extra firm tofu, whatever the case that might mean. That way we're sort of still having the foods that we enjoy, just having the other stuff along with it to build that meal up to where it needs to be. And that way we're not running into the problem of not hitting our protein targets. And I think the one Tamil food that I recently had another eye-opening, even though I knew it was a little bit crazy, it was like mutton curry. That tends to be really, really high in calories. And I had a very, very sad moment the other day. I was on Saturday and my mom made some mutton curry for the first time. And it was the first time after my photo shoot that she made it. And I sat there and I put in like 200 grams of rice and 200 grams of mutton curry, and it came out to 1,200 calories. And I kind of cried eating it. It was so sad. I'm not even full. Like I could eat 3 more plates of this, no problem. But it's the way it is, right? So being mindful of that and having those things that may not necessarily be great once in a while, right? Not as our staple meals. Any questions with that?
Just a general question. How do you track? So how I track is I obviously cook the food, then I get the scale out, put my plate, then I start putting the food, and then I just take a picture of everything that I'm adding as I go along. So if I had 200 grams of rice, which I don't, but 200 grams of rice, I take a picture of it, and then everything gets plated. So you have the final plate, and then I eat, and then I go and track it.
Yeah.
I mean, what am I doing? Is there something that I should be doing better there? Should I just, because sometimes you don't know if you're gonna eat everything on your plate, or if it's like a chicken curry and it has bones, then you have to subtract the bones from the chicken and all that stuff. Like, how are you doing it? How is
That's a great question. So typically, if I know I'm gonna have a certain food, it depends on which meal it's gonna be too. If it's my first meal, I have a little bit more flexibility and to just kind of put. And at this point, I have a rough general guideline of what things are gonna look like in my head. But what I would do is, let's say, Darcy, you've cooked all your food, you cooked your rice, you cooked all these different things. Chances are everything that you've made so far, you've already tracked at least once. So it's kind of there in my Fitness Pal using that same food that you're just logging it again, right? So what I would do is I would just quickly put in, hey, here's what 150 grams of this looks like. Here's what 100 grams of this looks like. Just put it in, get a rough idea for it. And then before you actually plate it, you have like a guideline.
okay.
What's like, hey, this is a little bit lower, this is a little bit higher. Let me make the adjustments I need to make. Cool. This is what looks good. Let me plate that. And then that way it's like next time, okay, this is what I had last time I had something like this.
Yeah.
And we just have the same amounts, make those adjustments. That way it's done before we actually put on our plate as opposed to after.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of defense, right? And then it's like, oh snap, once you plate it, it's kind of hard to put it back. Like, you're not gonna put it back, you're gonna eat it.
Sure. Yeah. You eat the whole thing.
Like, especially like if you're gonna plate it for yourself. So that's the biggest thing. Is we can be a little bit more proactive on that sense as well. And then with the chicken curry as well, if we're doing something like that, what I usually do is I'll just put in, I'll weigh the chicken curry part out, and let's say it's 200 grams, and I'll just eyeball it and say, hey, 100 grams of this or 150 grams of this looks like actual cooked chicken. Maybe the other 50 grams of it is the bones or the broth or whatever, the curry itself or whatever. So I'll put in 150 grams of cooked chicken thigh or whatever meat I used. And then the other ones, I'll just add in like a tablespoon of oil or whatever the case that might mean. So that way you're kind of going about eyeballing it instead of like subtracting the bones and going back and forth from there as well.
Okay.
Cool?
Yes.
Yeah. Because we're already tracking it. We track it like for a little bit more proactive, then we're in a much better spot to be able to hit the targets by the end.
Just one more question. I just saw a quick blurb come up about protein powder and how it affects kidneys. Have you looked into that? Is that, I mean, again, I didn't click on the article, but it said protein powder does something to your kidneys that's not obviously positive. I mean, have you guys heard anything or?
So based on all the research that I've seen, the only time protein powder will affect your kidneys in a negative manner is when you have something called CKD, which is chronic kidney disease. And I've had 2 clients over the past 4 years. I think 1 or 2 people who actually had that. And it was even protein powder in general. We just had to keep the protein way lower.
Lower, okay.
It was like, this dude is like maybe 190 or I think he's like a 200-pound guy, but we had to have him at like 70 grams. Because like anything more and is like, it just like his kidneys didn't have the ability to process it. And that's a genetic hereditary thing that's been passed to him. But eating protein isn't going to affect your kidneys in a negative way, right?
Okay.
If you have healthy kidneys, and most people do.
Right. And in that, with that, what percentage of your protein daily should be coming from protein powder source, or as opposed to whole foods? Do you have a
in a perfect world, 100% of your protein should be coming from whole foods. With that being said, I would say if you can keep that number to Less than 30%? That's probably
Less
good.
less
Good.
than 30%. Okay.
Well, let's say 150 grams is the target or 170 grams
Yeah.
is the target. About 40 to 50 grams, right? I usually cap myself at a scoop and a half of protein.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll do 1 scoop. The only time I'll do 2 scoops is like if I know I'm going to be going out and like I'm just trying to save as many calories as possible. And even then, I won't even have 2 scoops of protein. I'll probably have 1 scoop and I'll get more whole food protein sources because it's going to keep me more full than just drinking something.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, you can't. That's a great question.
Thank
Does
you.
that?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think I'm hitting that 30% target, but I just want to know. Because
Yeah.
on a busy day, you are reaching for, oh, let me just put a smoothie together, you know, and it keeps the calories low, but then
Yeah.
gives you a great protein.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to just double check on that,
Yeah.
just to be sure.
Usually in a good spot. The only time I'd be concerned with that, and I've spoken to a few people about this, is if a majority of your protein is coming from powders and bars and like protein snacks and that, I can tell right away your digestion's messed up. And I always message these people, I'm like, your digestion hasn't been good, right? And they're like, no. I'm like, do you know why? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, it's because like 80% of our protein is coming from stuff that isn't real food, right?
Yeah.
And these things are great, like one-off things or things that we can use to boost, but when it becomes the bulk of what we have, our body just doesn't digest it as well, or even if it does digest it, we're more constipated, or the bowel movements aren't very regular. It's not as efficient for our body, right?
Yeah.
So it's a big thing that we want to pay attention to.
Thank you.
Perfect. Managing calories, cool. So with this one, obviously going under and over the calories, more so for most people, it's going over. Biggest thing that we see there is the hidden calories when it comes to cooking, and that's something that we really try to emphasize and reinforce. Is that something that we get tracked, because we can overestimate that, we're going to be in a good spot. Number 2 is the weekend blowouts, right? And it's typically not just one meal on a weekend. It's more so when it's multiple days with multiple meals. That's when really things start to add up, right? So let's say we're staying locked in from Monday to Friday, right? And then Saturday comes around and we have a day where we go over. Okay, not the end of the world. Depends on how much we went over. But then Sunday we go even crazier, right? There's days easily where we can be in a 1,000 calorie plus surplus. And what do I mean by that is when we're in a fat loss phase, I have each of you guys ideally in a calorie deficit, right? So there's the amount of calories that we have to lose weight, there's the amount of calories that we have to maintain weight, and there's the amount of calories, anything over that is what we have a surplus with, right? So even if we're eating at maintenance, not the end of the world. But it's when we get into those crazy surpluses where we might be able to put down 3,000 calories or 4,000 calories or 5,000 calories. That's when we average out our calories for the week, let's say we're consistently in a 500 calorie deficit, for example, throughout the week, Monday to Friday. 5 times 5 is 2,500. Cool. It's 2,500 calories that we're down. And then on Saturday, we go out and we have, I don't know, for example, 4,000 calories. Let's say that's 2,000 calories over our maintenance. We've just pretty much kind of erased what we did. Not in a technical sense, not all of it, but it's going to make it a lot harder for us to see that consistent progress week after week, right? Liquid calories are also a big one, right? That's why I mentioned the milk, right? That's why things like juices, drinking tea with milk and sugar multiple times a day, it's going to add up, because it's 100 calories here, that's 100 calories there, it's 100 calories there, boom, that's 300 calories that we kind of added in. I'm not saying we can't have that. That's why we look into making those swaps, because if it's, let's say it's tea and sugar with regular milk, tea with regular milk and sugar, 1 cup of milk is about 150 calories. Let's say we use, 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. That's about, give or take, 40 to 50 calories. We'll say it's 175 just to be on the conservative side. You have that 3 times. 175 times 3 is a big number. I'm not going to do the math. But let's say we swap it out for almond milk and sweetener. We just dropped it down to 30 calories per cup. There's no calories in the sweetener. That's 90 calories. So it's somewhere between 600 that we've just brought down to 90 for the exact same thing, right? That's why we want to be mindful of those liquid calories, because it's not necessarily going to keep us full. The other part there is also like the portion creep, right? Adding little bits of food, those little snacks, a little bit that we add, having an extra portion of things, it doesn't just increase a little bit, it kind of doubles, right? So being mindful of that, and that's why tracking ahead of time puts us in a good spot to where this doesn't really happen, is because we are aware of what's going on. We know what's happening before it actually happens instead of doing it after. Going under our calories can be a problem if it causes us to overeat, right? And typically, the only time we advise you to go super under or super lower early on in the day is if we know we have an event or something we want to save calories for. But the other thing I always say is if you have an event or if you have something we want to go out to, let's make sure we have some sort of protein or some sort of calories before we go there. So we're not going in there super hungry and starving, and we end up overeating, right? Going under your calories is also the biggest thing I see, which makes it hard for people to hit their protein goals, right? If I tell you to eat 140 grams of protein and you're supposed to be eating 1,700 calories, for example, and you're eating 1,300 calories, it's going to be incredibly tough to hit your protein goals, and you're probably not going to hit it. Why? Just because we're not using the entire budget for that. So that's a big part of it. Too large of a deficit. So having really low calories for a long time can cause increased fatigue. It can make cravings a lot worse, and it can cause us to continuously fall off. And this is something that I think most of us get into. This is something that took me a long time to understand, is just because you can eat 1,200 calories for however long you can doesn't mean you should, because at some point you're not going to be able to do it and you're going to eat it all right back. And then you go into this endless loop of dropping and eating, overeating, dropping and overeating. And it doesn't allow us to actually feel fueled throughout, right? A big part of that process as well is not being properly rested and recovered for our workouts, for actual life, whenever that happens as well, right? If we're not eating enough, our workout performance is going to tank, our recovery is going to tank, our sleep isn't going to feel great, we're going to feel like a zombie, and it's going to lead to more bad decisions down the line. So if we want to make sure we're addressing that, we want to make sure we're addressing their metabolism on that side of things as well, which is why we don't want to go severely under all the time. Any questions with this part? Solid. I think we're good there. Carb sources. This
Quick
one's
question.
yes.
So, when you're going out for events, sometimes you're not hungry, but you do want to enjoy the event with food. I mean, I think we're all in the Western world. No one's hungry per se, but you do want to get into the festivities of the event, right? Like last weekend, I was at the Kotratu event. I'm not hungry, but you also want to, enjoy it because you don't get it as often, or you don't make it, or I mean, it's just a comment. I don't think there's any solution to it.
I would say try sharing where you can, especially if you're not super hungry going into it.
Try
right?
what? Sharing?
Sharing, yeah. So it's like, hey,
Sharing.
let's say I go with my buddies, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not that hungry, and
Yeah.
maybe someone else isn't that hungry. It's like, I don't need to eat the whole thing. Hey, do you want to split this with me? That's usually a pretty solid option, right? It's like,
Yeah.
we can have half-seas, and that way we sort of get to try it, or multiple people get to try it, and it does, you still get sort of the experience, but you don't feel like garbage just because you ate a bunch of food that you didn't really need to eat.
True. I mean, I made some changes over the weekend, which I didn't do any of the appetizers. I kept with watermelon and grapes, so I just stuck with fruit, as others were having all these appetizers. But then when the main meal was the kotroti, then I kind of filled myself, and then dessert I didn't do anything. So making little trade-offs here and there. Before I would have done all three.
Yeah.
All three of the stuff. So
I think the other big part of that too, Darcy, is understanding our hunger cues and following them as best as possible. Because if we're eating and we're not hungry, yes, we want to enjoy the event, but we're also teaching our body that, hey, we don't need to just eat when we're not hungry, right? If we're consistently doing that over and over, especially when it comes to events and stuff. Every single time you go to an event, you're going to associate that with eat something to have fun, right? And I know in your case it was a Kotu event, which is it's based around foods, right? But I guess
Yeah.
not every event is like that in that sense. So just being a little bit more mindful there too.
Yeah, that's something I'll definitely have to work on.
It takes time. It takes time because it's something we've been programmed our entire lives when it comes down to it.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, it's like don't miss the food.
Yes. When it comes to carb sources, I think this is a big one because most people, or one of the biggest complaints, one of the biggest concerns, problems people typically get is, hey, like when I'm having my carbs or when you tell me to eat more carbs, I always end up going higher on the calories, right? How do I keep that in mind? Well, the typical things that we have when we have carb sources like this is the amount of oil, the amount of fat that we use to cook this, right? White rice, white bread, these two things pretty much have zero fats in them. It's just carbs, which is great if we're trying to just eat carbs, right? They're a little bit faster digesting. When we get into things like the parathas, right? When we get into things like samosas, when we get into what are other carb sources that people typically have, it's usually some sort of dish, like a rice dish with something, right? That's when we start to add cooking oils, or there's butter in it, or there's like oil in the actual dough, or whatever the case that might mean, which start to add up really quick because we know fats are more calories than carbs, right? So then we start to increase our overall calories, even though we're trying to keep the carbs really, really high, right? So the biggest thing I like to say is we have, I don't want to say cleaner, but more efficient sources of carbs. So being really mindful of that, right? Number two is we have most of these carbs around our workouts because that's going to put us in a really good spot. I know, Saidi, I told you to have the apple before your workout. Apples are purely a carb source, and that's something that we'll have before a workout. So we actually have energy when we go do our workouts, right? We're going to feel a lot better, especially if we're feeling lightheaded or low energy halfway through or by the end of it. Chances are we're probably not feeling ourselves properly. So that's something that we want to take care of, right? Having those carbs around our workout timing before and after is super ideal. The other part as well to making sure that we're staying full is choosing carbs with fiber in them, right? Things like oats, things like vegetables, brown rice even has a little bit more fiber in as well. It's going to slow down digestion, which is going to make you feel a lot better, right? Especially when we start to eat more carbs on a fat loss phase. We have things like the white rice and the bread, cool. They're just carbs, but they also digest really fast and it doesn't really fill us up as much. So if we can have more vegetables and oats and all those things and fruits make up the bulk of that, it puts us in a much better spot going forward. Any questions with the carbs?
Yeah, I do notice that the carbs, it just keeps you a little bit fuller though. Like when I have my breakfast and it's just like an omelet with obviously with eggs, but not do like a, again, not every day, but if I don't do a whole wheat toast on the side, I notice that at some days I get hungrier sooner versus
Yeah.
if I have that toast,
Yeah.
then it kind of keeps me fuller.
Yeah.
So because there's a lot back in like, I don't know, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, there was like, no one had carb was the enemy of weight loss, right? So I remember that phase, like the whole South Beach diet and whatnot. I just don't think it obviously doesn't work for long term, but then knowing that a little carb goes a long way too, and how to balance it out.
Yeah, and I think for us to see the changes that we want in our body, and that usually comes down to a combination of fat loss and building the strength, building the muscle. Carbs are the number one thing, more so than protein, when it comes to us building muscle and building the physique that we want, right? So with a lot of people that when we finish their fat loss phase and we go into a reverse diet phase, the struggle isn't necessarily eating more food, because anyone can eat more food. The struggle is, hey, how do we eat more food and make sure we eat enough carbs without going too crazy over our calories? Right? That's the biggest thing that I have. And that's something that like I'm literally working on myself, because I just finished my fat loss phases. How do I make sure most of this is coming from, it's mostly carbs and I'm not going way over my calories? Because when you eat more of those foods, you feel good, you have more energy in the gym. And it's an integral part of making sure we have that sort of long-term process with what's going on with what we're doing there as well. Solid.
Dry weight for rice. Interesting. So, like before you cook it.
I'm not a fan of that, especially if you cook for multiple people.
Yeah.
I make rice, and people
Yeah.
in my house are gonna take the rice too. So like
Yeah.
nothing that way. So just be consistent with the one that you're doing. I find cooked is way easier.
Yeah, that's what I do too. Okay.
Action plan. What is this AI action plan that has made me? What is this?
Also, the AI put this together. It's pretty good. I like it. Actually,
I gave it all the information for the slides, but then it gave me this action plan at the end. I didn't tell it to give me an action plan, but this is pretty good. Get a food scale. I've already told you all to do that. Number 2, log in real time or as you're eating foods or before you're eating foods is the number 2 big thing there is making sure, like we said, we're putting this stuff in so we can make those adjustments as we're having it. Number 3, be mindful of the protein intake, just like how you check your steps, right? Make sure you get in the morning, adjust as you go forward. Don't just sit there and when you're plugging in your dinner, oh, fuck, I have 500 grams of protein I have to eat. Let me pull out the Greek yogurt and the egg whites. Like, it's not going to be fun that way, right? Number 4, you don't need to necessarily build a personal food library, but like what I was mentioning to Darcy is once you start tracking, once you have similar foods in there for long enough, you start to realize, hey, like how do I structure this meal in a way that's going to fit my macros, right? Or what a lot of my clients have started doing as well is if there's specific dishes that they're making over and over again. For example, one of my clients, Darsha, she does like her own salad. So she has her own salad recipe in MyFitnessPal. One of my other clients, Davina, she has, I think she does like a pad thai or chicken pad thai, something she makes at home. She's actually made that recipe as a meal in MyFitnessPal. So she's told it, okay, I usually have this much of this sauce, this much of this much of that. And she's just able to plug that in as we go forward, right? So building that personal food library does take a little bit of upfront effort, but it's really helpful down the line when we start to eat a lot of those foods as well. Number 5, we already do this, and if we're not doing this, we need to be doing it. It's just making sure we're tracking our weekends, right? Making sure that we're tracking every single thing guilt-free puts us in a good spot, even if it's just an estimate. That way, we actually have an understanding of what's going on as we're going through that process to make sure that we can make the best decisions as we go forward and go back and say, hey, if I already did it again, how would you do that? Because that situation is likely going to come up as we go forward. Any questions with any of this stuff?
Is there an app that works as a scale that you can put food on your phone?
What do you mean?
Curious. Is like, I mean, if I want to bring, should I be getting a scale to bring with me for outside food or outside?
I wouldn't say so, because you're not really doing it that often.
Yeah.
It's not like it's every single meal, right? It's usually what, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday maybe.
Yeah.
Right. So if it's things like that, then that's where we want to just get good at eyeballing.
Eyeball. Okay.
Right, and sending those pictures using us. I think AI as well. I think the AI that I use, I don't know if it's just because I've given it so many prompts. I'm like, we make sure to overestimate everything. The estimate that it gives me is pretty solid now because I've told it many times how to track all that stuff. Right. So that's actually something that we're working on here is getting you guys access to like an AI that I've kind of programmed in terms of how do we actually track this. So you can send it pictures and it'll give you a better estimate than a normal thing. It's actually something that we're working on in the back end there, but that's a skill in itself on top of what we kind of have to do, which is why we don't want to make it more complex than it needs to be. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Any questions? Any other questions?
I know a couple of things. We've been obviously focused on protein, carbs, or protein and fiber, and we had discussions over carbs. Any of the other things we should be looking at? FitnessPal has a bunch of like, I don't know, saturated fat. You know,
Total fats is a good number.
Total fat.
Yeah, so like instead of saturated fat, just fat in general is a pretty good number to be mindful of.
Okay.
You let me know, Darcy. I'm down to take you through that rabbit hole if we want to go through that in your next check-in.
Sure. Sounds good. Thank you.
I always don't like to put too much on people's plate at the beginning because then it's just doing macros, fats, everything, and then the workouts and the steps, and it feels like a lot.
Oh
So
yeah.
start simple. But if you want to pay attention more so to that, we can definitely do it. And when we start to look at fats and carbs and all those things, then we can start to look at how your digestion is getting affected, how your energy levels are getting affected, when we're getting hungry, how we want to incorporate all this stuff, because everything just plays a role. You can go into that a little bit more in depth as well on your end.
Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions, guys?
No, I'm good.
Perfect. If we don't have anything else, holy smokes, how long have we been talking for? Almost an hour. Sweet. I will let you guys enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. I don't want to bore your ears off too long. If you have any questions, if anything has come up, please let me know. Shoot us a text in the group chat. I think the only slow response times are going to be in the mornings. Conference times are from 8 to 2 or 8 to 3. But I don't expect it to be where I can't use my phone completely. So we should be in a good spot as we go forward. Cool?
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Perfect. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the rest of your week, guys. And we'll catch you guys later this week.
Okay, thanks.
Have fun. Thank you.
Bye.